Mike, I think it would be really interesting if you would tell us about one of the more in-depth or dramatic truck wreck cases that you've gotten the opportunity to work on.
Well, there's been several, but probably one that best fits that category. There was an accident involving a very sweet lady who had stopped at a red light. And while she was stopped at the red light, an 18-wheeler came blaring through town and slammed into the back of her car at about 35 miles an hour. And in fact, it was one of those things where the light was turning from yellow to red as she was slowing down to stop, as was appropriate. And the truck driver, obviously not paying attention, was trying to beat the red light. And in the wreck, the immediate aftermath of the wreck, he basically told the responding officers that she had slammed on the brakes in front of him and that it was her fault that the accident happened. And we were able to, if you remember, we were able to recover surveillance video from around that intersection at the time. And we were actually able to show that she stopped appropriately just like 1 second or half a second before the light turned red. And then in the next 1 or 2 seconds of the frame, the 18-wheeler comes into view and we can actually see black smoke start to pour out of the exhaust as this driver is slamming on the gas to try to beat the red light.
Wow.
And in addition to the video surveillance that we had, we also found, or we did a download of the truck's computer. And as you know, when we were able to do that and download all the information from the computer on the truck, we were able to link up in a real live time analysis from the information in the truck's computer to the video, and that information matched. So the truck's computer confirmed that the driver was on the gas, went from no gas to on the gas as the light was red, as well as the video. But that case actually involved a lot more than just establishing the at fault, who was at fault in the wreck and what happened. As you remember, and I know you know the case I'm talking about, our client was significantly injured. And her injuries exceeded the minimum policy that the trucking company had. And it's in much the same manner as another case that we've talked about in this series. There was not enough insurance to go around, and the company had taken the position that we don't own anything. Well, rather than just accept that, we did a deeper dive into discovering and investigating the facts behind the company itself. And we came to discover that the company had separated out all of its assets into separate companies, all controlled by the same man and all run together. And they had done that to protect themselves against people that had been hurt.
Yeah, didn't you find that they had actually, this same man had run another trucking company several years before and had been involved in another very serious accident and actually started all these shell corporations specifically to avoid having to pay another lawsuit if one of his truckers hurt someone else?
That's exactly right. This was a company that had a long history of running negligently and dangerously on the road, breaking the law and hurting people, and then trying to avoid being held accountable and responsible. They had been involved in another accident where actually involving a family, and 2 people in that family were killed. And right after basically hiding assets, in that case, they turned and just dissolved their company, started a new company, and turned it into 5. To where the actual trucking company didn't own anything. In fact, the trucking company no longer held title to its offices, its trucks, its trailers, its storage yard, its 150 acres that it owned were all separated out into about 5 different companies. And so we were able to prove that was a sham and a shell game, and as a result, right on the eve of trial, we were able to get a fair settlement for our client that was over and above the limits of the insurance that was there.
Right, and that's something that without enough investigation and effort being put in during the litigation process, most law firms never even find out that exists. They find out there's a normal trucking policy, which is of course far larger than your normal auto policy, and they just settle for that, even though their client's claim is far, far larger than that policy can really cover. And so by taking those extra steps, we were able to get her taken care of, where there was enough there to really compensate her for her medical bills and to take care of her needs that she was going to have going forward for the rest of her life.